What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down the secret to being an unguardable wide receiver. So if you do these things that we're going to be discussing today in this video, a DB will literally not be able to guard your route. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope we could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you like to learn 200 plus wide receiver drills you can do for your route running, your press releases, your hands, check out that very first link in the description below for our 8-week wide receiver on-field workout plan. It's an 8-week long schedule with daily on-field wide receiver drills that will help you out. We give you the exact sets, reps, and a video example of each drill you should do on like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday schedule type thing. So check out that very first link below if you're interested, fellas. Let's get started. So the secret to being an unguardable wide receiver is being able to cut while you are running in full speed. So let's play this example here from Justin Jefferson. This is a great example of somebody running full speed, being able to cut on a dime and get plenty of separation. Now, the reason why this is the secret, the reason why this is going to get you separation on every route is because playing the DB position is incredibly hard. They're playing a guessing game 24/7. They do not know what we are going to do. They like to act like they know what we're going to do, but they really have no clue. And as a wide receiver, if I could make all of my routes look like a fade, look like I'm running vertical by running in full stride and running full speed, that's going to get me open. But now, as all of you probably know, that's a lot easier said than done. Me saying that is a lot different than me actually doing that. So what are some of the key mechanical things that you can do to help you cut and run while you're running in full speed and full stride? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So this is just a great example of it, right? Running in full speed, that's something that could get that DB to open up his hips, get him to backpedal, but what are the mechanics of it? So number one, when you have bad mechanics when you're running full stride, full speed, you are going to slip and fall. We are not going to be able to make a tight change of direction, which is why a lot of wide receivers and a lot of wide receiver coaches don't necessarily teach this or try to emphasize this. But at the end of the day, when you're a wide receiver and you're going up against a DB who's extremely fast, especially all of you that want to play at the college level, if you're going up against a DB who's faster than you, you better be running your routes full speed because that's the only way we're going to get open. If we're jogging, if we're going half speed because we're worried about changing direction and being slow, you need to work on your change of direction skills, not slowing the route down. So this is a clip here from Deontay Johnson in college, and he slips on this route. He does a great job of running in full speed, running in full stride, but he slips, obviously. And this is why everybody's so hesitant with doing this. But your foot strike, your mechanics of your hip drop, the foot placement, those are things that all tie into this. So the reason why he slips on this break is because he's trying to snap down, right? He's doing everything that he needs to do. He's got a good pad level. His stride length stays the same. He's running hard. Everything looks like a fade. Because when we can make it look like a fade, that's what gets that DB to open up and think, oh, crap, I got beat deep. So when we have to change direction on this, your foot placement is key, fellas. You see when he strikes the ground, what hits the ground first? He is on his heels. So, fellas, when you guys strike the ground when you're running full speed on your heels, that's a great way to not only hurt your knee, hurt your Achilles, but also your weight is going to be distributed back. That is going to make you fall back on the route and be off balance at the top of the break. So that's exactly what happens. He strikes the ground on his heels. All that energy shoots back. His chest is straight up in the air, and that's why he slips. His feet are too far ahead of him while his upper body is leaning back. And when you make that kind of error while you're running full speed, that's the problem. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking, well, I have that problem. I break down and my chest is up in the air and I'm turning my shoulders, but I don't slip. You're probably not running hard enough into the break. So what are some things that you should be thinking about? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So let's play this thing full speed. So he does a great job. He's running full stride, running full speed, but it's a lot easier said than done to run routes like that. So let's look at this route right here. So this wide receiver is making the same type of break. That was more of a stop route. This is going to be more of a comeback route, but it's the same type of break. It's the hip drop where you have to get low and snap down at the top of the route. So let's play this full speed. So he comes off here, takes the outside release, but watch what he does at the break point. He's actually snapping. His pad level goes forward. That is how you guys can decelerate on a dime when you're running full speed. That's the secret, fellas, because if we can make this DB think fade and I could eliminate any kind of wasted time and get out of my breaks fast, he has no choice or we have no choice but to be open. So when you guys are running full speed and you have to run a route like a curl, a comeback, and I'm going to talk about how you can cut off of 1 foot here in a second on the next example, but when you have to drop your hips, you're running full speed, you have to make sure we are getting low. The position that you want to try to shoot for, this is what I tell my wide receivers. You want to be sitting in a chair with your lower half, so you want to sit your butt down. It's almost like you're doing a lunge. I'm sure all of you have seen, somebody with weights doing lunges, walking lunges, or maybe squats. They drop their butt butt down. They don't just bend their knees and hinge at their waist. They're dropping their butt down like they're sitting in a chair. But when you drop your butt down, you don't want your chest to be straight up in the air because that's like what Deontay Johnson did. You want your chin to try to go to your knee. If you can get to this position, and you can get to this position quickly where you snap down, sitting in a chair, chin goes to your knee on a dime, and you do it as quickly and as violently as possible, that is a whole lot of energy that you are creating right there. You are turning that speed that you had while you're running in full stride, full speed, which is what's so important, and that's what this video is about. You are turning that speed into explosion by getting low like that. Think of it like somebody's got a string attached to your chin and you are pulling that down. Because now I'm in a position to where I could change direction because I got low enough. But the aggression, the violence of my hip drop is what creates energy to shoot me out of the break. So if you can do all three of those things, fellas, you can run in full stride, you can create energy, and then drive out of the break because of the energy, you are going to get separation. You have to get separation, and that's why it works. On every single route that you run, that is what we should be thinking about. So now let's play this full speed, and then I'm going to talk about how you guys can do it off of 1 foot when it's a route like a post, a corner, a 10-yard out. Those are the ones that guys struggle on. So he comes off here, great job pushing up vertical, snapping down, getting his hips low, and then driving out of the break. So now, we're going to be looking at this route from Brandon Ayuk, and he's going to be running, this is kind of like, it's like a deeper slant, if you will. I would consider it more like a bang 8 post, like a quick post off the ball. But nonetheless, it's the same type of mechanics that we want. So you know what? Actually, I'm going to show this example of Garrett Wilson doing it incorrectly first, and then we're going to go back to this example. So let's look at this Garrett Wilson clip here. So he's running an out route. So when you are trying to cut running in full speed, like we said, your foot strike is very important, right? In the very first example we talked about, your foot strike. When you snap down, when you cut off the 1 foot, you cannot be striking on your heels. But what causes that? What causes you to strike on your heels? Because obviously nobody's thinking about that. And it comes from reaching outside of your frame. If you guys are running full speed and that cut leg goes outside of your body frame, that is what's going to make us slow, and we're not going to be able to run full speed. So you look when Garrett Wilson is doing, he's doing everything right. You know, he's selling with his eyes. He's got good pad level. He's not taking choppy steps. He's running full speed. We got the DB to commit his hips. But what lets the DB recover is when we waste time at the break point. He knows he got beat, but again, running full speed and changing direction is harder. It's easier said than done, fellas. It's harder to perform because now when he puts the brakes on, see how he reaches outside of his frame. See how that foot goes outside of his body frame. That is a not so much balanced position, I guess you could say. We cannot drive off of this foot being outside of my frame because watch what happens. Because the foot's outside of his frame, he can't push off of it. Because remember, like on that comeback, we want to run full speed so we could create energy with my brake and that energy shoots me out. But when this foot gets outside my frame, I don't have any energy. I can't push off the foot. My leg extends. I strike the ground on my heel first. You see how he goes heel toe because it's outside his frame. So watch what happens. He has no push, so you see how he takes those 2 extra steps right there. Those 2 extra steps will let every single DB, I don't care how talented they are, be able to recover. And he did some stuff with his stem that I would like to be a little bit cleaner, you know, in terms of getting skinny because he doesn't have much space to the sideline. But those wasted steps, fellas, is what gets us in trouble. I'm a firm believer that I think all of you can run full speed into a break. It's just the break point that screws up so many guys because they don't know how to do it correctly. So make sure we are not reaching outside my frame. So let's play this full speed, and then we're going to show that example from Ayuk doing the exact same thing. So now, let's go back to this bang 8 post. So when he goes here, I want you to watch. This cut does not reach outside his frame. It's right in stride. He just shoots that thing in the ground, and he is as sudden as possible with it. So he attacks DB's leverage, takes the inside release. You see how his hips, shoulders, stride. He's doing everything right, just like how Garrett Wilson was. But obviously, let's look at his cut and watch where his next step is. You see how his next step off of this single cut right here is going this way. It's going down the side of the break. It's not in place because Wilson, when he made that cut, took 2 more steps right here because he reached. But because Ayuk kept that cut inside of his frame, there's no indicator. He's not letting the DB know a break is coming by reaching, and he's not losing speed and explosion by being outside of his frame. He's keeping that foot inside his frame. He's being sudden so he could drive and he can explode. That is textbook right there. So now, how can you work on this? What are some things that you can do to emphasize this? And that's what we're going to show in the next example. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we'll talk about how wide receivers can practice cutting in full stride and while running full speed. So let's go to this last example here. So this is going to be a post corner route from this wide receiver. So when you guys are training, what I do with my wide receivers to make sure that they get comfortable cutting in full stride is we run every single route. Like, I purposely try to go to fields that are not like turf fields when with yard lines, because sometimes wide receivers rely a little bit too much on the yard line. And bear with me, I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but when we go to a field that's all grass and we're running routes, and when it's press coverage, different scenario, completely different scenario. But let's say it's zone and we're working a post route. They don't have yard lines to know, like, to look down and be like, okay, I'm going to break it 10 yards. They have to go off of steps. To practice being able to cut in full stride, I highly recommend that you run routes off of steps. So what do I mean by that? So way we count steps is you either count steps based off of your inside steps or your outside steps. So let's say he's running a post right here. We want him to cut. This is not for every single post, by the way. This is just for this post. He's going to be cutting off of his fourth outside step. So his fourth right leg, that is his cut leg. So if you have that step count in your head, you're not worried about looking down and slowing down, which will prevent you from running in full speed. So let's play this full speed. So count his steps here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Breaks right off the fourth step and is able to run that route with a ton of speed. That is what you want to try to emphasize and what you want to try to copy. So let's count him. Let's break it down and let's count him. So he goes here. That's his first outside. You wouldn't count your inside step right here because that's just too much. Imagine, you don't want to be running a route and counting steps, because when you start thinking too much too about the steps, you also will start to slow down. So rather than him thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and breaking off the seventh step, he's thinking fourth outside. He keeps it simple. So he just counts the first step. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and then he knows he's breaking on the fourth. He's not thinking this right now in a live game, but he's repped it out so many times that this is second nature. His body is used to these habits that he is doing in the game. So fellas, when you're on your own and you don't have yardage to rely on, run routes off of steps. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now as a disclaimer. If you have press coverage, it turns into more of a landmark. So like, let's say, for example, this post, his fourth outside, that'll take him, I don't know, about, like 10 to 12 yards. So fourth outside, let's say it takes you to 12 yards. If you got press coverage, you cannot count steps. You have too many things to worry about. It should be a habit, though, when you're in a game to work a press move and to pretty much break off your fourth outside. It should be a habit, but you cannot count steps while you're going up against press coverage. It's just too much on your mind. There's too many things you have to worry about. It's more so about getting to a landmark, because a DB might get hands and throw off your step count, and then we're going to be playing slow. But when it's against zone, when it's against off man, you got to make sure we are counting steps. And when you're training, you should always be practicing counting steps to help you with that habit. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver, pushing vertical, breaking off that fourth outside, and creating space. All right, fellas, if you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate your feedback. Always great to hear from you guys. And we appreciate all the support you guys watching these videos. I'll see you next time.